Today is Friday, April 17th. I want to say hello to all of you. And today we are reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by JK Rowling, illustrated by Mary Grandpre, and we want to thank Scholastic News for allowing us to read today. So if you would like to follow along, please open your books and join me on page 121. Malfoy went to join his friends Crabbe and Goyle, looking pleased with himself. There weren't many people left now. Moon, Knot, Parkinson, then a pair of twin girls, Patil and Patil, then Perks, Sally Ann, and then at last Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was a hall full of people, craning to get a good look at him. Next second, he was looking at the black inside the hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's a talent. Oh, my goodness, yes. And a nice thirst to prove yourself. Now, that's interesting. Where shall I put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought. Not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, eh? Said the small voice. Are you sure? You would be great, you know. It's all here in your head, and Slytherin will help you on your way to greatness. No doubt about that, no. Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin, he hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. Percy, the Perfect, got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite the ghost in the rough he'd seen earlier. The ghost patted his arm, giving Harry the sudden, horrible feeling that he'd just plunged it into a bucket of ice-cold water. He could see the high table properly now. At the end nearest him sat Hagrid, who caught his eye and gave him a thumbs up. Harry grinned back, and there, in the center of the high table in the large gold chair, sat Dumbledore. Harry recognized him at once from the card he'd gotten out of the chocolate frog on the train. Dumbledore's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as ghosts, and Harry spotted Professor Quirrell too, the nervous young man from the Leaky Cauldron. He was looking very peculiar in a large purple turban. And now there was only 4 people left to be sorted. Thomas Dean, a black boy even taller than Ron, joined Harry at the Gryffindor table. Turpin, Lisa, became a Ravenclaw, and then it was Ron's turn. He was pale green by now. Harry crossed his fingers under the table, and a second later the hat shouted, "Gryffindor!" Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed into the chair next to him. "Well done, Ron. Excellent," said Percy Weasley pompously across Harry as Zambini Blaze was made a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled up her scroll and took the sorting hat away. Harry looked down at his empty gold plate. He had just only realized how hungry he was. The pumpkin pastries seemed ages ago. Dumbledore had gotten to his seat. He was beaming at the students, his arms opened wide, as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see them all there. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, and here they are. Nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. Thank you." He sat back down. Everybody clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. Is he a bit mad? He asked Percy uncertainly. Mad, said Percy airily. He's a genius, the best wizard in the world. But he is a bit mad, yes. Potatoes, Harry? Harry's mouth fell open. The dish in front of him were now piled with food, and he had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table. Roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, bacon and steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and, for some strange reason, peppermint humbugs. The Dursley had never exactly starved Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he'd like. Dudley had always taken anything that Harry really wanted, even if it made him sick. Harry piled his plate with a bit of everything except peppermints and began to eat. It was all delicious. That does look good, said the ghost in the rough sadly, watching Harry cut up a steak. Can't you? I haven't eaten in nearly 500 years, said the ghost. Then I don't need to. I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpingen, at your service. Resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower. I know who you are, said Ron suddenly. My brothers told me about you. You were nearly headless Nick. I would prefer you called me Sir Nicholas de Misny, the ghost began stiffly, but sandy-haired Seamus Finnegan interrupted. Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless? Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed as their little chat wasn't going the way he wanted. Like this, he said irritably. He seized the left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell to it onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. Somebody obviously tried to behead him, but not done it properly. Looking pleased at the stunned looks on their faces, nearly headless Nick flicked his head back onto his neck and coughed. So, new Gryffindors, I hope you're going to help us win the house championship this year. Gryffindors have never gone so long without winning. Slytherins have got the cup 6 years in a row. The Bloody Baron's becoming almost unbeatable. He's a Slytherin ghost. Harry looked over at the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there, with blank, staring eyes, a gaunt face, robe stained with silver blood. He was right next to Malfoy, who, Harry was pleased to see, didn't look too pleased with the seating arrangements. How can he be covered in blood? Seamus asked with such great interest. I never asked, said nearly headless Nick delicately. When everyone had eaten as much as they could, the remains of the food faded from the plates, leaving them sparkling clean as before. A moment later, the desserts appeared, blocks of ice cream in every flavor you could think of, apples, tarts, chocolate eclairs, and jam donuts, trifle, strawberries, jello, rice pudding. As Harry helped himself to a tart, the talk turned to their families. I'm half and half, said Seamus. Me dad's a muggle. Mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. A bit of a nasty shock for him. The others laughed. How about you, Neville? Said Ron. Well, my gran brought me up, and she's a witch, said Neville. But the family thought I was a muggle for ages. My great-uncle Algy kept trying to catch me off guard and force some magic out of me. He pushed me off the end of the Blackpool Pier once. I nearly drowned, but nothing happened till I was 8. Great Uncle Algy came around for dinner, and he was hanging me out of an upstairs window by my ankles when my great aunt Enid offered him a meringue, and he accidentally let go. I bounced all the way down the garden and into the road. They were all really pleased. Gran was crying, she was so happy, and you should have seen their faces when I got here. I thought I might not be magic enough to come. You see, great Uncle Aggie was so pleased he bought me a toad. On Harry's other side, Pierce Weasley and Hermione were talking about lessons. I do hope they start right away. There's so much to learn. I'm particularly interested in transfiguration. You know, turning something into something else, of course. It's supposed to be very difficult. You'll be staring at you'll be starting small, just matches into need, needles and that sort of thing. Harry, who was starting to feel warm and happy and sleepy, looked up at the high table again. Hagrid was drinking deeply from his goblet. Professor McGonagall was talking to Professor Dumbledore, who Professor Quirrell, in his absurd turban, was talking to a teacher with greasy black hair and a hooked nose and sallow skin. It happened very suddenly. The hooked-nosed teacher looked past Quirrell's turban straight into Harry's eyes, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. Ouch! Harry clasped his hand to his head. What is it? Asked Percy. Nothing. The pain had gone as quickly as it had come. Harder to shake off was the feeling Harry had gotten from that teacher's look, a feeling that he didn't like Harry at all. Who is teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? He asked Percy. Oh, you know Quirrell already, do you? No wonder he's looking so nervously at Professor Snape. He teaches potions, but he doesn't want to. Everybody knows he's after Professor Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about dark arts, Snape. Harry watched Snape for a while, but Snape didn't look at him again. At last, the desserts too disappeared, and Professor Dumbledore got to his feet again, and the hall fell silent. Were a few more words. Now that we are all fed and watered, I have a few start of terms notices to give you. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all pupils, and a few of our older students who do well to remember that as well. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the directions of the Weasley twins. I have also been asked by Mr. Flick, the caretaker, to remind you that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house team should contact Madam Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year the third floor corridor on the right side of the bounds is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Harry laughed, but then he was one of the few who did. He's not serious, he muttered to Percy. Must be, said Percy, frowning at Dumbledore. It's odd, because he usually gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. The forest is full of dangerous beasts. Everyone knows that. I do think he might have told us preface at least. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song, cried Dumbledore. Harry noticed that the other teachers' smiles had become rather fixed. Dumbledore had given his wand a little flick, as if he was trying to get a fly off the end, and a long golden ribbon flew out of it, which rose high above the tables and twisted itself snake-like into words. Everyone pick up their favorite tune, said Dumbledore, and off we go. And the school bellowed, Hogwarts, Hogwarts, wordy Hogwarts, teach us something, please, whether we be old and bald or young with scrabby knees. Our heads could do with flying, with some interesting stuff, for now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff. So teach us things worth knowing, bring back what we've forgot. Just do your best, we'll do the rest, and learn till our brains all rot. Everyone finished singing the song at different times. At least only the Weasley twins were left singing along to a very slowly funeral march. Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand, and then they finished. He was one of those who clapped the loudest. Ah, music, he said, wiping his eyes. A magic beyond all we do here. And now, bedtime. Off you trot. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the chattering crowds, out the great hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were like lead again, but only because he was so tired and full of food. He was too sleepy even to be surprised that people in portraits along the corridors whispered and pointed as they passed, or that twice Percy had led them through the doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They climbed more staircases, yawning and dragging their feet, and Harry was just wondering how much farther they had to go when they came to a sudden halt. A bundle of walking sticks was floating in mid-air ahead of them. As Percy took a step towards them, they started throwing themselves at him. Peeves, Percy whispered to the first ears of Poltergeist. He raised his voice as, Peeves, show yourself. A loud, rude sound, like air being let out of a balloon, answered, Do you want me to go to the bloody baron? There was a pop, and a little man with a wicked, dark eyes and a wide mouth appeared, floating cross-legged in the air, clutching the walking stick. Oh, he said with an evil crackle, ickle firsties, what fun! He swooped suddenly at them. They all ducked. Go away, Peeves, or the Baron'll hear about this. I mean it, barked Percy. Peeves stuck out his tongue and vanished, dropping the walking sticks on Neville's head. They heard him zooming away, rattling coats of armor as he passed. You want to watch out for Peeves, said Percy as they set off again. The bloody Baron's the only one who can control him. He won't even listen to us preface. Here we are. At the very end of the corridor hung a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. Password, she said. Caput Draconius, said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it. Neville needed a leg up and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys to another. At the top of the spiral staircase, they were obviously in one of the towers. They found their beds at last. 4 posters hung with deep red velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Great food, isn't it? Ron muttered to Harry, as though through the hangings. Get off, Scabbers. He's chewing my sheets. Harry was going to ask Ron if he'd had any of the tart, but he fell asleep almost at once. Perhaps Harry had eaten a bit too much because he had a very strange dream. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him he must transfer to Slytherin at once, because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin. It got heavier and heavier. He tried to pull it off, but it tightened painfully. And there was Malfoy laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into the hook-nosed teacher Snape, whose laugh had become high and cold. There was a burst of green light, and Harry woke, sweating and shaking. He rolled over and fell asleep again. And when he woke the next day, he didn't remember the dream at all. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that read. Tune in on Monday.